this lesson, I'm going to walk you through some ways to apply Freddie Green chord voicings to the blues in E. This is a really great way to add a few new chord substitutions and a few new colors to your playing, keep the bass line moving more, and eventually you can use this as a kind of call and response with single note licks you might be playing over a steady bass as well. If you want to download the example that I just played, you can go to the link below or the link on screen, sign up for my newsletter, and get the tab for this lesson as well as a lot of other lessons that are here on the channel. So I'm just going to walk through the chord voicings I'm using line by line so you can see what is staying the same and what is changing relative to the way the usual 1, 4, 5 chords of a 12-bar chord progression would go. So to do all of these, I'm using the steady bass, just quarter notes on the 6th string, just about always. And then these voicings are all from a family of chords that a lot of people call the Freddie Green chord voicings because they were used by Freddie Green and the Count Basie Orchestra, usually in closed position with a pick, but they're just 3-note chord voicings, usually on the 6th string, 4th string, and 3rd string. And so when he would play them, they would sound like that, but we're going to use them to play fingerstyle blues. So we'll also have the high string or the 2nd string being played usually as an open string note from time to time. So in the first line, we start off with a bar of E, and I'm going from root, flat 7, and 3rd here on the 6th, 4th, and 3rd string, up to this inversion with the B in the bass, so the 5th and the 3rd and the flat 7. And then going to an A in the 2nd bar. Now, if you were going to use this in closed position, you'd play the root on the 6th string at the 5th fret, but it's fingerstyle guitar. We got an open A. Let's use it. So here's the root, the flat 7, and the 3rd. And then we're going to this chord substitution, an A minor 6. And so this is the root and the 6th and the minor 3rd of A, and that actually resolves back to E, which we're now going to play in the 3rd measure as an inversion of E major with the 3rd in the bass, and then the root in the 5th, and then a G diminished, which is could resolve to E this way, but actually this voicing is both a G diminished and you can see it as a C7 with the 5th in the bass. So coming in by half step from C7 to B7 here, with the F sharp in the bass, and then back to E, and then one more time to the E with the B in the bass to get you into the next line. So then we're on an A chord in measure 5, and here we're going to play from A and using the high string on top, and then here's E with the 3rd and the flat 7, and instead of putting the 5th in the bass, we're going to put the root of E in the bass, and this is a chord substitution. Here's A, here's E, which is the 5 of A, taking you back to A, and then here's that A minor 6 again at the end of measure 6. And then, measure 7, we've got an E with a G sharp in the bass, and then we go up to an A, and this is a kind of chord substitution too. We're really, ordinarily, we'd be sitting on E for 2 bars, but we're going to rock between E and A and back to E again. So it's going to the 4 and back to the 1 to kind of dress up that moment. And we can use the open B string to add some color, which is the 9th. Now here's that G diminished or C7. Here it's actually functioning as a diminished, leading you to the 2 chord at the beginning of the last line, at the beginning of measure 9. And so here we've got F sharp minor 7 to B7 with F sharp in the bass, which is a really typical swing and jazz place to land in bar 9, as opposed to coming straight to the 5 chord. So we've got a little bit of melodic motion on the F sharp, and then we go to the B7, and then we change this to an F sharp 7 which is another chord substitution. This is the 5 of 1. F sharp is the 5 of B7. It's a borrowed chord or a secondary dominant. And so we have, and there's the flat 7 of the chord on top. And now we're on B7, but all we're really doing is grabbing the B root and then playing an E blues lick to take us back home. And now for the turnaround, we have a whole set of chord substitutions. We go from E to G sharp, to G, which is a tritone substitution for C sharp. And what we're really thinking is 1, 6, 2, 5, and thinking, okay, this is home. This is the 5 C sharp of F sharp, which is the 5 of B7, which is the 5 of E. So it's a series of secondary dominants, a series of borrowed chords, each of which resolves 5 to here, 5 to here, 5 to here. So 5 of 5 of 5 of 1. But in place of the C sharp, we're going to use the tritone substitution. That is the dominant chord a tritone away. In this case, it's G7. Then we're going to go to the actual F sharp. And then we're going to use the tritone substitution of B7, which is the chord a tritone away, F7. So that way, instead of playing E, C sharp, F sharp, and B, we get E, G, F sharp, F. And that takes us back around. So those are the voicings that we're applying to the progression. Now, as far as the technique, it's always a steady bass. So the thumb is always playing on the strong beats, just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just that the chord voicings are moving around. And what the fingers are doing to grab the voicings, to grab the inner parts of the chord, and maybe grabbing an occasional open string on the high string or the second string, that stuff is more syncopated. So you might start just by going through, say, the first 4 bars with only the bass. And then you might try making sure that you're actually forming the chord shapes while you're doing that to make sure you're using the finger you need to use to fret the bass note that you're playing. So and then you can start to look at what's going on top. So you could, again, just take the first 4 measures. And then you can start trying to put it together. But that way, at least you'll have sort of a sense in your head of kind of what's going on melodically, because the idea is that the chord voicings themselves the idea is to have some motion and some direction. And so it's not random. You can see that there's this line that's coming down. Which is sometimes called a guide tone line. And that note, that series of notes, is what's giving the movement of the chords and the chord substitutions kind of a through line, like something that your ear can listen to and say, oh, that's the path I should be taking through the chords. And so the contrast between that and what the bass is doing is, is what gives it some sort of pleasing complexity. Sometimes it's parallel, but sometimes it's not. And so that gives it some interest and some contrast. And so then you start to put in some of those melodic moments with those open strings. some of that where you're sort of breaking up what's going on in the middle, which is more of a rhythmic effect. But all those things together are what sort of lends it this musical quality, because you've got syncopation going on, you've got the steadiness of the bass anchoring things, you've got the through line of the guide tone line, you've got the inner voices of the chords going on. So all of that is a lot. And so you could also just make sure that you know the chords, and then, you know, do your own experimenting with it to see what you can come up with, putting those kinds of voicings over the steady bass. And one last thought is, you obviously don't have to use all of these chords all the time. And one particularly effective thing you can do is to play just some single note blues stuff on the first couple measures, say, and then use these chord voicings as a kind of answer to that. So you might have something like, so on. So it just gives you more choices. It widens your palette. It gives you some other kinds of chord moves to do, some other kinds of voicings, helps you get out of open position, all kinds of things. So once again, if you want to download the tab from this lesson, go to the link below or the link on screen, sign up for my newsletter, get some tab. And if you've got a question or a comment, leave it down below, and I'll see you next time.